my question for you is, and this is, I guess, the big question everybody wants to know, is, do you think someone can consume marijuana, cannabis, and still live up to the scriptural, I guess, standard of like remain sober-minded?
Yeah, I don't put it. Yeah, I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
Now, can somebody takes too much and not be sober-minded? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think, I was on this lame church show recently, and the guy had lived in Colorado, had no experience. And so it's like, whatever, I'm not telling you. If you told me I'd never tried it, it's not like, oh, I can't talk to you. But it's hard to have a conversation if you've only drank and then you've talked to people about this, but you don't even know you've never, it's a different feeling. One, I think, checks you in, and one checks you out. There's a different power, I think, to this plant than something like alcohol. That's just, and so when we try and twist the scripture to say, well, and that's why we have to have smarter conversations, like recreational, medicinal. Okay, well, maybe it doesn't fall in either of those, or CBD good, THC bad. Like this product, and we were just talking about pain, probably, I mean, my mom swears by this right now, and it's a 1 to 3 THC and CBD. And the studies that I'm reading saying CBD activated with THC, which you can only buy in a dispensary. You can't buy that at Bath and Beyond, but that's going to be, stronger effects. But then you have people, well, I heard THC is bad. I don't know, is it going to make me high? No, Mom, if you run it on your hip, you're not going to be high. Like it goes into my sister, and she's like, this has changed her life. Wow. And it's like, then, she's like, Craig, can you mail it to me? I'm like, no, Mom, because I can't mail it to you. Can you just go? So I gave her a location to go buy it. And she's like, okay, my neighbor will go with me. Because for my mom, imagine that, like a 65-year-old going to buy marijuana. But I'm like, Mom, this isn't a joint. It's not flour. It's cream. And yet all that crap you put, those patches you put on your body, all that, and her body, rejects that. So I think you can. I think for me, and I found out what my biggest pushback is so far with the church and with the Christians is it's one line that I've used a lot, that, okay, this can help you emotionally. Okay, sure. Physically. Okay, sure. And dare I say spiritually. Oh gosh, why do you need drugs to connect with the Lord? Like you haven't been in my head. Like if I was to take Ritalin or, all these other prescriptions, Xanax or, Zoloft, or, I don't even know what those drugs, just names I see on TV all the time. You would, okay, that's fine. But, I had a buddy that runs a nonprofit post a prescription for his pills and says, I take these every night. And everyone's liking it, going, oh, I'm glad you're getting help. But you say you're using this to shut this off or connect more. And then an outcome of that is, gosh, a presence with the Lord. Because my mind's not running a to-do list.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I like how you push back on your podcast, which people should go check out your podcast. I'll link it in the description below. You said, you could take too much Tylenol and it mess you up. Yeah. I definitely think that I utilize caffeine. I take a pre-workout in the morning, and it's like, man, I'm not even awake before I take that. I take that, all of a sudden everything turns on, and I use that to power through my day. But I definitely think you could abuse caffeine. Clearly you can abuse alcohol. You could abuse food. You could be, there's so many things that we can use to get high and not be sober-minded, that I think in the same way that we could also enjoy food unto the Lord, in the same way we could also enjoy coffee unto the Lord, in the same way we could enjoy alcohol unto the Lord, there is a space of enjoying cannabis in a responsible, non-drunk, intoxicated manner, right? Break down the science though, because when I looked because I was like, man, when I listened to that podcast, I was like, he sounds crazy. Like, there's no way. And then I actually looked at the dosages you were talking about, and I asked my heavy cannabis user friends that take edibles, and I'm like, yeah, he's talking about 5 milligrams, and they're like, oh, that's not gonna do anything to you. 10 milligrams, you got to do 50 milligrams, and I'm like, what? And they're like, and so once I discovered microdosing, that's when I was like, oh, like you're not taking it to get stoned. You know what I mean? Like you're taking it for the benefit. Talk about the dosage amount.
Yeah, we have a whole thing coming out. I buy too many domains, but I bought lowdosing.com because I was like, actually I met a mom in Pasadena. She's got kids. She runs a business in the medical space, and she wrote all this stuff about low dosing. And I was like, all right. So you go to the dispensaries now, you'll see a lot of products that, I mean, these are 5. You'll see 1 milligram mints, you'll see 2.5. I mean, you're seeing a lot of microdosing. People are talking about microdosing mushrooms as well. It's illegal, but there's something about that. And so I have a buddy, same thing. He takes 100 milligrams. Like that's so much, for me. And 145 pounds, you got to figure out your weight. You got to figure out your tolerance, and then what it is that you're taking. Like if you take a heavy indica, and 10 a.m. and you're like, it didn't make me tired. Well, you just slept for 10 hours. Like, you might just feel groggy, or it depends on what your body kind of, how it reacts as well. So for me, the first thing that I'd ever done, it was like 5 milligrams. And so, every dose, I mean, right here on this package, it says novice would be 5 and heavy would be 25. And so to get high, so that a lot of people say, oh, were you high? It's like, but you don't ask somebody that, like, oh, were you on, like I take an allergy pill, I was out in the desert. Did you take your allergy pill? Like, hey, did you take something? Like, did that send you through the roof on another? Oh, can you drive? Can you do this? Like, I can do everything. Like taking 5 or 10 milligrams doesn't affect me where I'm like sunk in a couch and I can't function. And it depends on what you're taking, and maybe what activity you're going to do. And so that's why I think you've got to look at it. I would never recommend, obviously, taking any marijuana or any cannabis with anybody like by yourself for the first time. And so having somebody and we've done that a lot with people as they've come over, it's like, hey, you have no problem drinking, but you might not have tried the right thing. Or maybe it's just, giving you a lotion. But
it's good. I had knee surgery 2 months ago, and upon having this knee surgery, the doctors were like, take Norco. We're going to give you a prescription for Norco. And it was right after, around the time I heard the podcast you did on Bad Christian. And I was like, man, it's, my mind is changing on this whole topic. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to take an opioid. Like, that just sounds sketchy, especially you hear about how many people take it to get addicted to it. You know what I mean? And the opioid crisis. Like, I'm not going to do that. And I told my doctor, I said, I think I'm going to try like an edible, edible. So I went to like this sketchy place that, it was just a mess. And I got these gummies. All they had is like actual gummy bears. And, nothing. They did nothing to me. I guess maybe they did their job and I wasn't in pain for a couple of days, but literally, like, I did not feel high. Like, I did not feel drunk. I did not feel intoxicated. It wasn't even as intense as my pre-workout or my yerba mates that I drink. Like, it was just kind of like, and then a week later, like, the pain was still there. And then I ended up taking these other gummies that were 6 grams of THC, 3 grams of CBD. And that stuff was perfect. Like, took away the pain, helped me sleep. And it was about a 2-3 week recovery. And that was great. And so what happened was, one of my buddies who was very like anti weed is like helping me document this whole thing. Cause like we shot it and whatever. And then we're going to make a longer video out of this. Those of you guys that actually want to see more. He was like, he just called me like maybe a week ago and was like, hey man, my mom is having these gnarly anxiety attacks. She had them 3 years ago, and they just came back, and she like literally cannot work. Like, it's never been as bad. We don't know if because some stuff's going on, whatever. Like, what was the stuff you were taking? And I was like, well, this is what I took, and this is how it's been, whatever. And so he literally ended up going and getting his mom some of the similar stuff, and was like, dude, she feels great. Like so now she's like an avid like cannabis promoter. You know what I mean? And so like, I think granted we're talking about individual cases, but I think these individual cases by and large reflect the possibilities of where this is going to go and how it could help people.
Yeah. And I think the more, that's when you look at Israel, you look at obviously anywhere but the United States, way more studies, way more, just even beyond cannabis. Like I said, Trip of Compassion, Tim Ferriss promoted that. It's a whole findings of the use of MDMA with PSTD. and they document like some of these clinical, the actual, it's fascinating watching this. And you're like, what is it in the USA other than political and, big pharmaceuticals being threatened by these things? And I wrote this. I just thought, I haven't ever shared it, but I just sent it to my friend because he's just like, I haven't had the same effect that you've had with cannabis. And so he's like, Craig, how would you describe it? And so I got to kind of fine tune it a bit more, but I just said cannabis in my system seems to put me in a more meditative space where I'm able to be more present with my physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual self, which would be my whole self. And I think and act more clear, sharper, and brighter than ever before. And, for me on my podcast, like those are all like journal entries of the last 2 years since I started using cannabis. And when I felt like I heard from the Lord in December, like, put that out. I was like, oh gosh, like I don't know. And so a lot has changed for me. But when I meet a friend, or when a friend calls me and her husband and says, this is the best stuff on episode 7 episodes in, this is the best stuff you've ever done. And then I go, okay, I don't know how you're gonna feel about next week. And they're like, why? It's on cannabis. And then they're like, oh, we swore that off before we came to Jesus. Like, we've never touched that since. And for some people, it's just like, yeah, you abused it. I see it. But like, I never did that. I tried it here, and they've stopped listening, stopped talking to me, and even stopped being friends.
Really?
And
they just cut you off.
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
I know Rob Bell. I mean, I went to Grand Rapids. I went to his church for years in Grand Rapids. I know Jen Hatmaker. I know a lot of the liturgists, a lot of these people that have been, Gunger, that have been thrown out by the church. And it's like, I've been able to navigate Triple X Church in a way where I think we got not 100% support, but a lot of support by all the, major players. I've never, and we've done some crazy stuff where people, you don't have to agree with the things we've done, but I mentioned cannabis, and it's like my wife's best friend from Indiana. She'll pray for her, and definitely, is there when my wife needs her and comes to her senses. Wow. Gone, like done. These friends, a supporting church, called me a drug dealer on stage, stopped supporting us. That's fascinating. Insane, and so, man. Like, I'd love to get a room of, Rob Bell questions hell. All of a sudden, you're off everybody's list. Jen, you said you were gay affirming. You're done. That's why I know Jen, because I have the publishing for one of her books that one of the publishers threw out. And it was like, why do we do that? And now being on the other side of it, I've never agreed with how we've treated these people, but I've looked at them succeed so well outside of it, but I'm trying to come back to the church and go, no, don't throw me out here. There's a path here inside this institution, because I'm not losing the name Christian. Just because, and I don't think that's the answer. Well, I don't call myself a Christian. No, I'm still a Christian. I still believe this, and I want to make this inroad here because there's people in your churches that don't know, what and if they can do this. And I'm not advocating for everyone to do it, but I'm saying this should be an option for people, and not fearful that God's going to send you to hell.